And hello!
Hi.
Hello everyone, sorry for the slow start. Welcome! We have B-Man Entertainment. Yep, I finished the game Thursday and Django, or Tuesday, today's Thursday. I finished it Tuesday and Django finished it a ways back.
Yep.
Ian, Noel, John, Cal, anybody else out there? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for dropping by anyway, B-Man. But yeah, we don't want to spoil anything for you. You should definitely enjoy the game for yourself. Um, but yeah, I'm excited. Like
Me too.
to talk about this game. Um, I guess yeah, like I said, it's a spoiler discussion. So we've both played it now. You played it on Jedi Master, which is the
I did, yes.
like it goes story Jedi Knight, Jedi Master, Grand Jedi Master, I think.
Yep.
And then I played it on story because I was streaming it. But I've since like yesterday I started a Jedi Master playthrough. Um, but which is definitely very different in combat, by the way, for those of you who are wondering if there's a difference between the two. There definitely is. um oh, and Ian saying he started at Jedi Master, went tonight, and then story for collectibles. That's fair. I'm excited to go hunt for more of the collectibles. I kind of wanted to do that from whatever file like became my main one. Not that it really matters because there isn't like a new game plus on it. You can go back for collectibles after the end of the game, but it just pretends like the end of the game never happened, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah.
On
So
Jedi Master and um the thing to me about it was not combat. I mean, I realize it's difficult, but
mm-hmm.
like I like jumping around a lot, and the game really penalizes you a lot if you're playing on master level.
Yeah. Um, for I'm definitely getting used to how the combat rhythm works. Ian said, "Yeah, I kind of wish there was a new game plus, but at the same time, I see why there isn't because how you get your powers is so ingrained into the actual story, like how you solve the
Yeah.
puzzles and that sort of thing. And like whenever you would go to a planet where you would get something, whether it was double jump on Kashyyyk or the wall run on Bogano, like you're going past all this stuff you can't do yet. Welcome, Poetry. Good to see you. And so I thought that was it's both cool because then what you're learning is integral to the story, but also like upon
Right.
replay is like, okay, but I know how to do this stuff now. But I appreciate it anytime in a game when you're learning something in a way that feels organic versus like I unlocked a thing, so now I can do the thing. Which granted, this game had both of that. The progression is sort of like Half-Life Portal. Like now you get
Right.
them and build it up. Yeah, Portal was definitely like that. It can make it frustrate where it frustrated me, but this is more of a me personality thing than the game's fault. Is I would play and I couldn't figure out if I was doing something wrong or if I didn't have the power. And like sometimes it was obvious, like the door was red or on the map, or the object had like a red force aura. But sometimes it was like I can't tell if it's
Right.
because I don't have double jump yet or if I'm jumping from the wrong spot. Um, and like
Right.
I get why they don't want to hold your hand and tell you everything, but that was just kind of my thing. That was the nice part about streaming it is I would try something and then everybody in chat would just be like, "Nope, you can't do that yet." I'd be like, "Hey, thank you. You just saved me an hour and a lot of anger, so I appreciate you." I think Django's side of the stream is lagging a little
Yeah. I'm here.
bit. Yeah, so I guess people.
Discord just hates me.
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah, you're coming through kind of laggy and robot-y on my end. Let me try changing the thing. See if he comes back. Now he's
Hi.
now you're just like a black square, so that didn't really do a lot. Oh, there you are. Are you with me?
I am, yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So people kind of got to hear my impressions of the game because I was playing it. We haven't gotten to hear too much. So what would you say, like, if somebody just on the street was like, "Hey, I'm thinking about grabbing Jedi Fallen Order," like, what are your general thoughts about the game?
I really loved. I think the best thing about Jedi Fallen Order is the story. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's a very story centric game. Not that other Star Wars games aren't, or the other games aren't in general,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes like the mechanics of the game is the point.
Right.
Like I'm a big fan of the Arkham games, and I feel like I cut out there for a second.
No, you're back.
But I was saying I'm a big fan of the Arkham, and like those are definitely story games, but like part of the point is to be Batman and go punch people, and so
Mm-hmm.
like the mechanics of it are as important as anything else. And I don't really feel like Fallen Order was like driven by the mechanics, but I really enjoyed the combat too. But I liked the setting of it. I really liked Cal as a character.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like all of the supporting cast was really good. I know that you had like issues with Trilla as the villain, but but I also know that you really love Seer,
Yeah,
so
it kind of
that,
makes sense, right?
yeah. But I really enjoyed it, and I think what I want most out of Star Wars, regardless of the medium, is a really good story. And I feel like that's what this was. We get to see galactic implications, but
Mm-hmm.
we get to see these things play out in these people's lives, like the loss that Cal feels and the guilt that he feels, or the disconnect that Seer feels. Like you feel that as you play through the story,
Yeah.
and I think that's the biggest takeaway from it for me.
Yeah, I would agree. I want to get Ian just said something in the chat, but I'll get to that when we talk about the mechanics. But I don't want you to think I didn't see what you said. But in terms of the story, I really liked it. I tried really hard to stay spoiler free, and apart from a handful of things, I'm not sure how much of this. Like, there's always, do you know the story or not? But I'm so used to like Darth Revan or something where there's like a big like story twist somewhere in a Star Wars game. And this one,
Right.
if I had to describe the story of Fallen Order, it's like the Star Wars version of Chicken Soup. Like, and I'm not saying that in any kind of negative fashion. It felt really good. Like it was just
Because
this.
it's good for your soul.
Yes, yeah. It was just like this was Star Wars. Like, and I kind of laughed because there were different points. Like I knew Trilla was in the game. I knew Second Sister's name, but like somehow when Seer was telling her story and said her apprentice's name, like it literally didn't connect. Like I did not put two and two together, even though I knew the name. And so you're meeting Second Sister for the first time on Zepho, and she's like talking about Seer and all of this stuff, and then she's like, "Did she tell you what happened to her?" And as a joke during that conversation, I'm like, "What, are you her Padawan?" And then it was, and like I didn't know, but it was like it was that thing. It was like that Star Wars story. But
Right.
and I don't mean to be like it's derivative and it was, but like no, it was really good. Like it was every kind of Star Wars story that I really liked put and told in this new way.
Right.
In a way that I responded to it. And like sometimes when you engage in a story, it seems like the plot is really obvious in a bad way, and sometimes it seems like the plot is really obvious in a satisfying way. And I would say
Mhm.
this game was a plot that was going the way I thought it was going to go in a satisfying way.
Right. I mean, and I really like too, while we're talking about the story just as a whole, I
Mm-hmm.
like how this fits into canon,
Mm-hmm.
because like we've seen, Joe Costanu having the list of potential Jedi, like that's been a plot point in a lot of different Star Wars materials in canon,
Mm-hmm.
and that we get to see how that storyline, effectively ends with the destruction of the holocron here. Like I feel like this was a cool way to get to see that payoff, where it wasn't just
Yeah.
a an Easter egg, but it like continues a story, which you don't is not like required,
Right.
but it continues a story that we've already seen in canon, and it really places it kind of in a moment in canon too, rather than just having it be sort of an amorphous, original trilogy setting kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, because I feel like even with with the Dark Forces era of games, like like you understand that it happens post Return of the Jedi, eventually, and when you're Kyle Katarn, you're running around fighting the remnant or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
like like that could be anytime or anywhere, and I feel like this really kind of makes it feels like it's part of the story to me
Mm-hmm.
anyway, like the pre-existing story of the canon universe.
Yeah, I think it tied into a lot of things really well. Ian was saying Reese's story, he'd describe it as having aspects of the EU Jedi sort of exploration plus Last Jedi without the character baggage. And I can agree with that. There were a lot of parallels in this game to Last Jedi, which, not to get too into discourse, which we try to avoid, I think it's no surprise that the crowd that largely had an issue with Rise of Skywalker in preference of Last Jedi largely has liked this game in terms of
Yeah.
the motion. But I've also not seen anybody play it who didn't like it. So, like,
Right.
as somebody who liked Rise of Skywalker, I also really like this game. But I feel like the team developing this would have been given access to all the Star Wars lore, but not necessarily access to the Rise of Skywalker. So if you're trying to, even though it's set in a completely different time period with completely different story going on, other than Ilum, the way to make it feel like it's connected is to connect it to the most recent movie they could get, which is where you get these kind of parallels and to thematically and like stuff that was going on in the mirror scene, and just the story of what's going on between Trilla and Seer feels so much like Ben and Luke.
Right.
And it makes sense that it would connect more in that way, especially because this game would have already been in development under the Trevorrow time period.
Right.
And so things that may have at one point in time connected to 9 now didn't, because JJ was going in his direction with a very different
Right.
script.
Right. But I think it does, for me at least, it does a lot more than that too. Because like
Mm-hmm.
even with like Tarful and
Yeah.
Saw
Mm-hmm.
on Kashyyyk, and like I mean the Inquisitors obviously tie into Rebels, but like the Night Sisters,
Yep.
and all that on Dathomir. Like I feel like it feels lived in, and I feel
Yeah.
like that's one of the things that I love about the Star Wars universe is that when Star Wars is done right, it feels like a place you recognize.
Yeah.
That's I haven't been to Galaxy's Edge yet, but like that's what I've heard about it, and what I like about the story set on Black Spire is that it feels like what we know. Even if
Mm-hmm.
it's a new place, it feels like what we know. And this game felt like that to me. Like I didn't know who Cal was, and I didn't know who Seer was. Neither one of us read the comic
Right.
before the game, but like I felt like I knew who these characters were, but still connected with them as individuals in a
Yeah.
different kind of way. Like we know what Order 66 is, and we've seen
Mm-hmm.
it before. And even if you don't have the most earth shattering response to like the Order 66 scene, you still like you can project what it's like to be Cal in that moment,
Yeah.
and like the feelings that come away from it, because it's something we know,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's a new version of something we know.
Well, and also, hello Gina, welcome. Ian's right too. He points out that this connects to Project Harvester from different things, including the Vader comics, the
Right.
kid hunting. But yeah, I mean, even with the Order 66 bit, I don't think I reacted to the Order 66 part the same way I saw so much online, where people were talking about it being really sad. But I realized I was having a strong emotional reaction. I just, like, not in the way you'd think. Like, if you watch that part of the stream, I was angry, and like that wasn't like fake streamer. I'm just being sarcastic and angry because it puts on a good show. Like, I was angry after that part of the game. And I kind of realized it as I was playing that, like, I was also not stopping to process what was going on because nobody wanted to sit and watch me for 15 minutes, like sit there and stare at a screen and take it all in. Or maybe you did. I don't know what you're into. But, like, I was still having a strong emotional reaction. And I think everybody kind of brings in these different things. And it really was like after I finished the game and I slept on the story and woke up the next morning, I was consumed by what I had just played. Like, I ended the game and I was like, oh, I ended the game. That's like, it almost in that first moment felt anticlimactic. Like, okay, it's done. They all stood there and were happy. Fine. And then I went to bed and woke up the next day and I was like, I can't stop thinking about everything I just did. And like the parallels and the perspective and how so much of the story is being told by what Trilla understands to be true, and what Trilla understands to be true is true, and what Seer understands to be true is true, and what Cal understands is true, and yet it has this bigger impact, or like all these different, like how people can see these different things and react the way they were going to, and I think it needed to set in, but it really is a game that I think everybody, I think if you play it and really do give it time and like sink into it and let it go, and you will have an emotional reaction to it. But I could see so many people having such different emotional reactions to what they've played.
Oh, sure. I mean, and I think the characters in this game are characters that have a lot of emotional baggage. And so, like, how much you relate to them is going to depend on what you're bringing to the table there, too. Because, like, Cal feels guilty because his master died.
Right.
And Seer feels guilty because her student was turned.
Right.
And it was at least partially, you'll debate this, but like at least Trilla says it's Seer's fault.
Right.
Like whether or not it is, stay tuned for our 25 point, different part video series of Seer did no wrong.
Yep, I'm planning a series about how Seer Agenda has never done a thing wrong in her whole life, and I'm going to explain it in detail.
but even with like Grease has a history and a background, or with Marin, like lost like everyone,
literally everyone,
and like how you connect with this. Like I think there's stuff that anybody can connect with, but I feel like some of this stuff resonates because, again, like it's a place in a world that we feel like that feels real, but I feel like these characters are feeling like real emotions too, not just like movie or video game emotions, but like real world emotions. Like this is stuff that real people have to deal with.
Well, even with Mirren, she is so mad at Cal when she first meets him because she thinks the Jedi are responsible for the Night Sisters attack because of Grievous, and Grievous was carrying Jedi lightsabers, and I like how it's really left up to like you would just kind of know, like there's not a big pointer scene where Cal sits down and explains to her who General Grievous was necessarily. But, she's not wrong that somebody with Jedi lightsabers came and, like, wrecked her planet. And I found great irony because the prequel era is riddled with things that the Jedi caused, like bad things that happened because the Jedi were, like, had great intentions that didn't pan out. But this is actually one terrible thing that isn't actually the Jedi's fault at all, and they're getting blamed for it. Like, this is... And, like, other than the fact that the Jedi could have surrendered day one of the war, there's literally nothing they could have done to stop the war from coming to Dathomir. And so I found great irony in that I thought was, I don't know, intended or not, but it was either intentional or accidental genius about that story point.
Well, and I think it's really done, I don't know if this is a mechanics thing, because I still think of it as a story thing, but the fact that Cal's main force power is psychometry too, like I think that it's an interesting storytelling device because it lets us see things that Cal wasn't there to experience without having to have everything in flashbacks. But at the same time, like we know because of that, Cal is literally feeling the emotions that have been imprinted on these objects. Like even from the moment he picks up the guitar and he feels kind of Seer's or whatever space guitar it was. I'm sure there's a Star Wars name for it. but like when he picks up the instrument, like he feels what Seer feels to play it. And so like that primes us for when, he picks up Trilla's Inquisitor saber at the end and feels all of the emotion of that. Like the player is feeling stuff, you are feeling stuff playing the game, but like Cal is experiencing all of these emotions because that's how the Force is relating this to him. And I think it says, I think it's an interesting storytelling technique, but I think it's also a statement about the strength of character that Cal has to have to be able to handle all of these other people's experiences and emotions without succumbing to them.
Ian says, in that light, it's interesting that he apologizes to Seer when he sees what Trilla went through. Well, first of all, everyone should always apologize to Seer all of the time because Seer has never done anything wrong in her whole life. But no, I found that interesting because, like, again, the way I was reacting to it is after you meet Trilla, Cal just gets, like, really mad at Seer. And, like, that was one emotional beat in the game that I don't know if it was because I was streaming and I missed something, like there was some kind of dialogue that explained it and I was just too busy being snarky to notice it or something. But like Cal gets back and is just mad at Seer, and I didn't understand why. Because while she left out the part of Trilla becoming an Inquisitor, she effectively, if I remember correctly in the game, had told him everything else. That she had lost her Padawan, that she was tortured, like her Padawan was found because she was tortured. So I didn't get what he was upset about, because Seer, like if he was going to be mad, he should have been mad when Seer told him her story, like not then. But part of me kind of wonders too if that's not because Cal is also dealing with this guilt, which he doesn't deserve either, but he feels like he let his master down. Part of that is because his master is kind of intense and filled like what, an 11-year-old with mass amounts of pressure to be able to run on a wall. Anyway, if you want to know my feelings like that, you should really watch how I felt when I fought like Shadow T'Pol in the Dathomir temple. But anyway, but he's like dealing with that guilt, and so part of me wonders if his anger isn't actually about Seer or anything Seer did, but like he's angry at himself but can't direct it at himself for letting someone down, and so he's mad at Seer for letting someone down because it's easier to be mad at her than direct any more inward. I could just be projecting at that point.
I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think he's also still trying to question like what's true.
Yeah.
Like because like he, you know, apart from doing it on his own, like he hasn't processed Order 66. Like he doesn't know, like he knows the Empire's a thing now, but like because of his isolation, like he hasn't really been plugged in to like know the politics of it all. And so like he's still trying to figure out like what's right or wrong. Like I'm thinking about like Force Collector, where they have like different conversations about whether or not the Jedi actually did betray the Republic.
Right.
And like some people say yes or no, but like he hasn't had a chance to do that. And I think part of that anger too, and we've certainly seen this, you know, in other Star Wars characters. There are several recent examples that come to mind too, when they feel like they're not being told the whole story.
Right.
And so I think it also makes sense that he might feel some of that anger just because there was more to the story than Seer told him, when she could have told him the whole story. I don't know that she needs to, but when something has been kept from you, your next thought is, well, what else is being kept?
Right. And that makes sense. Well, and I think at that point too, and it didn't hit me until just now as you were saying that Seer is the first Jedi of sorts that he's talked to since Order 66. And he was just a child. So at some level, you know, he could have trusted his master, but he doesn't know if some members of the Jedi Order actually did turn traitor or not. Like, he wouldn't have gotten like a holocron with Obi-Wan Kenobi on it like Seer had or like Kanan had, because he would have just been crashed on Braca. And so he's really like that line where he's talking to, what is it, Prof is his name, and they find the Jedi starfighter on top of the thing, and he's like, not all the Jedi could have been traitors, and like Cal doesn't know what to say to that. Like, maybe he doesn't know what to say to that because he knows none of the Jedi were traitors, or maybe he doesn't know what to say to that because he doesn't know.
Right, sure.
And
well, it just makes you wonder too. I mean, apart from, you know, Anakin a little bit and Ahsoka and Barriss, like we don't really get to see how like the Clone Wars affected Padawans, or like how much. I mean, I guess Kanan to a certain extent too, but we mostly see Kanan from Order 66 on, not like in the war. But like, to what extent were the Padawans aware that the Sith Lords had returned and were control? Like we don't know like what they knew or didn't know.
Well, and especially if you have an example like Ahsoka and Anakin. Anakin's going to be unorthodox anyway, so I feel like Ahsoka would be more privy to things than your typical Padawan, and to see that type of thing. But no, I think there's a lot there, and like this is all just me kind of playing through the beginning twice and the whole game once. So like I said, I'm excited to play through it again and kind of catch more of this when I know where the story is going. But I don't know, I appreciated that, and I feel like there's so many different parallels of characters, because you have Cal, who was taught by T'Pol, and T'Pol, I would argue, was overly strict, but you could also argue that overly strict teaching is the reason why Cal was even able to survive. And then you have Seer, who's far more understanding because she's coming from a place of failure herself, to kind of come and pick that up. But then you have, from Seer's perspective, you have Cal and Trilla as her two Padawans that go down these different paths. And you have Cal and Mirren, who both come from these people that have been wiped out. And even though they're enemies, they can understand each other. And then even then you have Cal to T'Pol or Cal to Seer, with Seer to I'm drawing a total blank on her the guy, the my friend guy who made BD1. Why can't I think of his name?
Enor Cordova.
Cordova, thank you. I don't know why I lost that for a second, but like, it's interesting to even hear about their relationship, because she knew about Bogano, but talked about how she never really went there, and like, makes reference to at some point they started going their separate ways. And like, when I do read the comic, I want to know more of like, was he an absent master, and like, what did Seer go through, and did she not know how to be a master to Trilla because she had like kind of this hands-off approach from Cordova, and the echoes of that. Like, I think it's easy to look at this game and see Cordova as this fun, eccentric guy who leaves you holo messages, and he's really cool, and he says inspirational stuff sometimes. But if he was doing all of that and focusing more on recording diaries in BD1 than training his student, then then how does that inform the character? And then how do you feel about him? And maybe the timeline explains that in a way that I don't understand, but that's another way to look at this that I find really interesting.
Well, and another one of the parallels I like too, because I spent a lot of time thinking about this after it happened, because otherwise it just feels like a random aside in the game. But when you encounter, the Haxian brood because of Grease's gambling debts, you're confronted with consequences of, because everybody has a past that they're trying to escape in this game. But Grease's past is based on choices he made. Cal's past is not. Mirren's past is not.
Correct. Even Trilla's, to a degree.
Right. Yeah, sure. But then there's the question of whether or not Seer made choices, or if she did something wrong. Right. And obviously some of us have thoughts about that. But Grease's, Grease's past, like that's based on things he did. Like, he made those decisions, and other people are bearing those consequences. So even the non-Force user, like, there are still parallels to his story. Like, he's not just the pilot, who owns the ship. Like he has, like, his story, his past is relevant to the struggles that all the other characters are going through too.
Well, and I like to, with some of the characters, the response to what they've gone through. You have characters like Cal or Seer who feel guilt, and then you have Trilla and the stranger shirtless guy. I marked something.
Not Joris Kaboth.
Yeah, the Diet Joris guy, who I literally sometimes forget was even in the game, to be completely honest. But like, I remember playing, and like, when you first meet Trilla, and Trilla is trying to like make you distrust Seer, and she's like, Mark Wahlberg, we'll go with that. So Mark Wahlberg. But no, Trilla's like, Seer, you don't know her. Like, this one time she used the dark side. And I'm like, are you an inquisitor who literally murdered my friend at the beginning of the game? And like, every day, like, you sneeze and you use the dark side. You're like, this one lady used the dark side once, and I'm supposed to be impressed. So it was like this idea of, well, she did it once, so that justifies all of this other stuff I'm doing. Or when Mark Wahlberg was like, I was the Jedi, and the Jedi, man, they were into, like, bureaucracy and corruption and stuff. And I'm like, okay, like, true. Like, I'm not going to disagree with you. But you are here with, like, your blood sigils that you've carved into your body as you've subjugated the remains of a people that have been decimated on their planet. Like, really? Like, you want me to, like, judge the Jedi because you're, like, leading a planet now? Like, it was like these weird leaps of logic. And I don't say that to, like, dunk on the game. I think the game was doing something very intentional with that. But for some characters, the response is guilt and shutting down and being afraid of your own power because you feel guilty. And then for some characters, the response to that trauma is, I'm going to feel vindicated in the pain I've gone through and use it to
Right.
justify the pain I'm going to cause. And so I
Right.
think I think it was very intentional. I just thought it was funny.
I mean, and I think it also, and like, if you want to think about like fate,
Yeah.
I think it says something that Cal is the one who is not that he is a chosen one, but he is the
Right.
one that the Force has chosen to go on this journey
Right.
because like he feels that guilt. But I think even more than Seer, he's the one that is able more easily to overcome it.
Yeah.
Because like Seer struggles when on the Fortress Inquisitorius, like
Yeah.
there with Vader, like
Mm-hmm.
she comes close again and he pulls her back from the brink.
Yep.
And I think like it had to be Cal. Like, and I
Yeah.
think that's how Cordova talks about it too. Like he says, this is for whoever comes, like
Yep.
whoever the Force sends.
Yep.
And like when I first saw that, I thought about it as almost like like Indiana Jones and the Holy Grail or whatever,
Yeah.
where it's like, oh well, any number of people could come and we'll just see who can solve the riddle first, or who
Right.
can make it to the end of the mystery,
Mm-hmm.
get past all the right traps in all the right order. But no, I think it really was Cal was meant to be the one, to be the person to find the holocron and to
Yeah.
save it, or to choose to destroy it.
Right.
um which
It's
I think was a more obvious answer to us than it was to them.
Yeah,
um
because I was like, I wasn't necessarily there. I think somewhere in the back of my mind, I was like, if this thing is super safe, like, should we be going after it? Because it's probably safer there than with us. But like, I understood the argument of they wanted to try to rebuild the order. But as soon as Marin was like, "Are you sure we should go after this?" I'm like, I think Marin is right. I think Marin has a point. But that I would say was that, like, I liked their goal of wanting to rebuild the order, but I also kind of feel like it was just the wrong time. And I mean, we see that with how long it takes for Luke to come around. But
mhm.
I think to try to train up and teach people while constantly being on the run from the Inquisitors, like, I just don't think. I think they were trying to find that hope, and that hope being to start the order over again. But maybe it's actually the hope to be able to ride it out until it's time
Right.
to start the order
Right.
again.
I mean, and sometimes you don't get delivered. Sometimes you just persist,
Yeah.
and hope exists in persistence, and it's not in the secret plans to destroy the super weapon.
Right.
It's, how do I survive to Tuesday,
Right.
or how can I you know find other people who need help,
Right.
and do what I can in that moment too.
Well, and it's interesting because we were on the last stream. We were discussing possible sequels, and it didn't hit me in that moment. But then it occurred to me, like, Vader knows they're alive.
Yeah.
Like, Vader is well aware that there are two, like, even to the extent that, like, he had interest in Seer, and I thought that was so well done at the end of the game, not only to give Seer that moment to, like, have her own kind of, like, facing the mirror moment, even though it wasn't
Right.
in a vision, it was reality. I love that it did that, but I love that the reason why Vader didn't just completely wipe the floor with them like he absolutely could have was he was like, I wonder what I can do with these playthings, and he was like trying
Yeah.
to turn Seer, and I thought that worked really well, and that's why they were able to get away. But like, now that he knows, and especially to the extent that he has an interest in Seer, if he thinks she would make a good Inquisitor, like, he's not done with them.
Yeah.
Like, whatever the sequel entails, it's going to, like, I don't see Vader, especially because they bested him. I don't see him letting them go.
Oh, I don't think so either. And I still wouldn't expect to necessarily see like the Grand Inquisitor. I know that was a thing that came up
Yeah.
in the chat the other day too, just because of how vital he was to the Rebels storyline.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But like, we don't know that Ninth Sister died, right? Like, that was left ambiguous.
He chops. I'm trying to remember now in that fight, because yeah, I remember thinking she could come back at the end of the fight, and then she doesn't. So it must have been her body goes over the edge or something. Because I feel like if it was her head was chopped off, I wouldn't be. Yeah, Ian's saying she's definitely alive. Also, hello, Mr. Rez. Hope you're doing well.
But I feel like there's so many other like just smaller story beats that have so much meaning too.
Yeah.
Because like, and I've not watched through your entire playthrough yet, but like I was really intrigued by how the Saw storyline ended too, where he's like, well, we did what we could, and now we're out.
Peace.
Versus, the one character who was from Zepho,
Yeah.
who decided to stay.
Yep.
And she's like, no, I'm gonna stay and ride this out as long as I can.
Yeah.
Like even that, like, and the parallels to what Cal and Seer are going through.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Saw definitely abandoned people. Yeah. Like leave them on battlefields as they are preteens.
Yeah, that's kind of his MO. And that was another case of it was cool to see Saw in the game. I hate it when I say see Saw, but I don't know. It's cool that Saw appeared in the game, because it is a way to briefly tie the game into the larger galactic story without making this so important that you wonder why the story wasn't mentioned in any other stories.
Right.
Especially because Saw has a knack for yeeting, as the kids say. So I thought that worked. If I can say two things about, they're basically the same thing, but about two different characters with the story. I have like such minor nitpicks about this game. Like I would say I have like 97% positive things to say about the game, 3% not, and of that, most of that is just the map. So like I really don't have anything negative to say about the game, but I often find with the stuff that's just like really, really, really almost perfect, that the stuff that's not perfect stands out more than when it's something that's a mixed bag, if that makes sense. But like, I loved Mirren. She's my second favorite character in the game, only because she's just not in the game as much as my favorite character, which was Seer. And I love that she kind of becomes this companion character and she joins the ship. And I get why they did this, because she wouldn't join you until Dathomir is done. That makes sense. Dathomir being the last planet before the end of the game makes sense. Like, I can't deny that logic. But it left me wanting more for like having people join up and like be companion characters on the ship. And then with Trilla, when she shows up on Zepho, like I was making fun of it in that stream, like she talks to you and then she like calls you 9 times and just taunts you during the level. Right. It's getting ridiculous. And then you go to Kashyyyk, or back to Kashyyyk at one point, and you find out she's on your trail, and there's like echoes of Trilla on Kashyyyk, and then you just never see her again until Bogano. And I would have liked it if she was a more like, I get that she couldn't be a super constant threat because they don't want you fighting her 5 times, and that's probably why Ninth Sister was involved in the story as much as she was. But for it to be such a parallel between her and Cal, and for them to both be so important with Seer, and for Seer to get that wonderful moment with her at the end of the game, I would have loved to see more with Trilla as a constant presence. I mean, she has your phone number. Like, she can keep prank calling you. Right. You know? Even if that's all it was. Or to go to planets and see stuff that she's wrecked or people she's hurt looking for you. And to have you have to deal with that gravity. I would have liked that more. But I don't say that to say that I didn't like what we got. Welcome, Omar. How you doing? Yeah, no, the map is terrible. The map is terrible.
I will say I came around on the map. Yeah. My biggest thing with the map is I really would have liked to be able to set custom waypoints and like see them on the display somehow, because it's really easy. Because some of those maps are so big, or because they're so 3-dimensional, it's really easy to get kind of turned around, especially when you played like I did and you just jump everywhere to see if you can jump there, right? Because you're looking for all the secrets the first time around, right? And because I feel like you played it a little bit differently than I did, so maybe it felt more linear to you, but sometimes it was very not linear to me, even though it was presented as such, and that's mostly my fault. And I would have, it's mostly on Zepho, but
I would have played the way you played, because that's more my play style. but because I was on stream, I just didn't want to spend an hour looking for collectibles. Right. So that's the only reason why I played it more linearly.
I just remember watching some of your playthrough on Zepho, and I was like, "Oh, okay. Like you weren't supposed to find that place at this point in the game. I just went this way to see if I could, and it turns out I could. And like then when I got to that place when you're supposed to find it, it wasn't immediately obvious to me what to do because I'd already been there.
Right. And I had that problem a couple of times, but not too often because I was mostly trying to like explore but not go crazy because of the stream. And again, Ian, I think I agreed with you, or maybe I didn't because I hadn't finished the game yet. I don't know, but he said there's parts of the game where it feels like it wants to be an RPG, but it never becomes an RPG. And I would agree. I mean, that's where the companion stuff comes in, and like they had on the skill tree there was like force, survival, and combat or lightsaber or something. Like usually in a Star Wars game, it makes you pick a class and you would go down like a particular path versus like having all of it.
Right.
So like I can see that. I feel bad nitpicking because the game does so many things that seem impossible that I don't want to be like, why weren't you a little bit more impossible than the impossible you already were? But like I said, it's just that taste of like when something's 97% perfect, that last 3% really gets you. So it's the Orson Krennic line. It's like we were on the verge of brightness. We were this close. Like I think that's where I was there. But yeah, Zepho, like, and for me, every time I've gone back to Zepho, I've gone down. I haven't gone collecting on the other side of the map. I just kept going back to the ship. So it's just me going down the slide I hate so much where you have to go down and freeze the gear and jump through it. And just it's like my least favorite thing I did in the whole game. And if I wasn't streaming, I would literally take the 10-15 minute route the long way to avoid doing that.
Right.
Just because no.
Well, see, and I'll say a couple things really quick just to not to skip over some points. The game didn't feel like an RPG to me. Like I get why people would think that it did or why it would feel that way to other people. But to me, an RPG is characterized by your ability to make choices. And I don't feel like the game gave you like this was not KOTOR where you can like decide how to react. But I also think that the point of this, like you've done videos about Revan before where like the point of this is to put yourself, like let yourself be Revan. And I don't think we're supposed to like cast Cal as ourselves. I think we're supposed to, and so like that's why it doesn't feel like an RPG. Like in terms of some of the mechanics, I get it, and like the conversation trees, which there's not even really trees either. It's just how many times you go and talk to different people in different places. But it felt different to me, and I think that was. I mean, I liked it that it was different. Yeah. I mean, as much as I want KOTOR 3 through 23. Right. I want all of those things. But also I'm right there in there with Omar about Zepho. Like trying to get back down into some of those tombs to find and I know you don't always play blank slate characters in RPG. It didn't feel like a role playing thing to me.
Well, like even so, like a game I've played with RPG elements that isn't Star Wars is I've played the first of the rebooted Deus Ex games. Deus Ex Human Revolution. That character is not a blank slate character. Jensen has a very defined backstory that makes him a very specific character. But from the moment you start playing as him, then you get choices on how he's going to react. And it's not the typical, like, passive, happy, overly aggressive type. Like, it's still dialogue trees within reason for his character. But you get to decide if things in the game change him a little bit. Where with Cal reacts the way he's going to react. But that's because, like you said, it's not an RPG. But, like, some of my most intense emotional reactions in the game were because I was disagreeing with how Cal was behaving. And I was like, like I felt really bad in retrospect, but I'm pretty sure at some point in that stream, I screamed, "Cal, destroy the holocron, you moron," which might have been a little harsh in the moment, but it was what I was feeling very much. Like, just destroy the dang thing, please. Thank you, Solo. I picked out this shirt specifically for this stream.
But
Um,
I really enjoy RPGs though. A lot of the games I play are RPGs. Like I loved Red Dead Redemption 2, and I
yeah.
invested like way too long playing that game. And those aren't blank slate characters either.
Hmm.
But I like complicated moral systems.
Yeah.
But sometimes I like games that don't give me that. Like I
Hmm.
liked that because like I feel like I'm experiencing Cal's story rather than making Revan's story into something.
Right.
Or like it's a way of experiencing a story rather than determining a story.
Right.
And I think both of those things are useful. But I like that this game chose that method, and I would.
I would agree with that because I remember when the game was first coming out, there was a question as to whether or not it was going to have a morality system. Because up until now, most Star Wars games have at least, even if it's the most basic. Like even Force Unleashed really doesn't have any morality system, but you do get to choose between one or two endings at the end of the very end of the game.
Yeah.
As basic as that is, I remember the devs saying that there was not going to be multiple endings, that you were telling one story. And at the time, I was bummed out.
Yeah.
But their explanation of it was that this was a story about a Jedi. This was a story about the Jedi path. This was a story about someone finding their way on the Jedi side of the Force. Hello, Nolan, welcome. And they didn't want to create choice within the game because they wanted to tell that story versus
Right.
making this even more complex thing where you could go dark or could go not. And I understand that, and I get that, and I think that with that decision made, they did an amazing job with what they told.
Right. I mean, and I get that there are parts of it that feel non-linear, as Ian says too.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm coming to this with my most recent game that I invested a lot of time being um, Red Dead Redemption, which is like
Right.
purely open world, and like the Arkham games before that, which are open world.
Mm-hmm.
And this is incredibly linear compared to those things.
Right.
I mean, you can move around, but the story progresses in one way and doesn't
Right.
really give you options on how to do that
Right.
or when to do it.
Now,
But I don't say any of that as a knock. I just think,
no, yeah. I think it's just coming from something that you're used to into to something else. But like that's kind of what this game is for me. There's a lot in this game that was a little bit different than what I usually expect. Because like for me, I'm either one playing strategy games, which is nothing like this, or I like games with really complex story trees. Like one of my favorite games is Life is Strange, which has crazy varying
right.
story trees to come to something like this that is one story. And then even like we keep talking about the soul style combat, Ian said towards the beginning of the stream how it's very much influenced by that, but not as like I don't think it would be as difficult. I've never played Dark Souls, but I've watched a lot of people play it, and a lot of games like it, and it didn't seem as bad as I was afraid this was going to be because I'm not built to play games like Dark Souls. But to get into the mechanics for a little bit, I thought it did a really good job of bringing in a different kind of combat system than we've really seen in Star Wars. Because like even when everyone tells me like Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy are like these really complicated melee games, I'm like, I'm pretty sure I was just swinging my lightsaber wildly and none of those buttons did anything, and it was all a placebo effect for all of you, and you were making it all up. Like I'm not convinced that there's like a complicated force or saber system in those. But like
it felt that way in 2004 anyway, or whenever.
But like even then with Force Unleashed, which was made to be this big grand experiment in like the Force in a video game, right. This was the first time I've played a Star Wars video game and really felt like I was using the lightsaber, and like how I was fighting had an impact. And for me to be able to do that and have it feel natural, especially, but to have that where that is not what I'm good at as a gamer, I think that's a sign of how good that combat system really was.
Yeah, well, if we want to talk about that, specifically, I was going to tell you, as you play through on master level, get ready to make that parry button your best friend.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But I also think that's kind of the point, though, right? Like, a Jedi doesn't use the Force for attack. Like, that's the whole idea. is so like if you want to imply philosophy on game mechanics too, like I feel like
Yeah,
kind of fits.
yeah. No,
Um,
I think that makes total sense. And I thought they did a good way of, or they did a good job of making even the combat and mechanic systems work in the context of the story itself. That, how Cal was remembering his force powers instead of like, I've landed on a new planet, I magically know force repulse like Starkiller. Like,
yeah.
And I don't mean to pick on, like, because I actually really like the Force Unleashed games too, but they're the same and yet very, very different. But like, to have there be a reasoning behind like why he would forget these things and then also how he would remember them. And I thought that was really strong. And the skill tree I thought made sense, and even the combat therein I thought worked really well. And so
I mean, whereas like if they do a sequel, like I think it would be really easy to take a character like Marin and let her be a more customizable
mm-hmm.
character, because like she has a backstory, but I feel like she wouldn't necessarily have to play by some of those same rules, and you
Yeah.
could kind of choose. I mean, as long as she has her magic, force cloak ability,
Yeah.
where you can just hide a ship from a star destroyer, like that's handy.
That's Cal. I do not remember the lightsaber control system in the Obi-Wan game because I never played it.
I didn't either.
So there's not going to be any kind of magical flashback where I suddenly remember how
You
that
just need to
works.
touch a copy of it, and then you'll just feel everything that people felt playing it.
Or maybe I can find somebody's old controller
Yeah.
and get it off of that.
What do you think about some of the locations in the game? I know we talked about like the Zepho map and how big it is, but like, did you have a favorite location you went to, or a favorite world?
I think my favorite location is Dathomir, even though it's
Mm-hmm.
definitely the hardest location. Well, other than like the last one, which was made to be harder. Like there was a definitive, like, difficulty jump when you went to that last planet. But Dathomir was probably the most frustrating because it was the hardest, but it was also the one I had the most fun
Yeah.
exploring. Kashyyyk is a second. Kashyyyk, I think, is the most beautiful of the maps. But Dathomir was just a lot of fun. But I thought they did a really... I like the mix of new planets and familiar ones. Like, it was nice to have Kashyyyk, and it was nice to have Dathomir, and like have so much of the lore that we know of both of those planets come in and be such a part of what you were playing. But then to have Zepho, and even though Zepho's kind of like frustrating because it's so gigantic,
Right.
and it has all of these weird things that you have to do. Zepho really feels like 2 or 3 different planets, because you have like the crashed Venator ship, and then you have like the underground portion, and then you have the above ground portion, like Imperial stuff.
Right.
But like, it's still cool. Like, it's so, and it makes sense that that's one of the biggest maps, because this game is so much about the Zepho, who we haven't really thought about yet. But I liked the mythology that came in there, and Bogano was a cute little world, and I don't know. I thought it was enough of, this is stuff I'm used to seeing in Star Wars, but even then, it wasn't like, we're on Naboo, we're on another planet where you've spent a significant amount of time in the films, or like you don't go to Dathomir at all in the films. In Kashyyyk, you're there very limited in Revenge of the Sith. So they're like familiar worlds, but they're also not. So that was really cool.
I will tell you, when you eventually go back, like even in your new game file, to collect more things, like it'll take you like 15 minutes to get to some of those temples, or like the tombs on Zepho.
On Zepho.
Like, before you even go to look for things, like you have to commit time to make it. Like that was another thing, like mechanics wise, I don't like about this game, and it makes sense why it's not going to be there.
Yeah.
But so many games that have expansive maps, even if they're not truly like open world, have some type of fast travel feature, especially like after you've been to a place. But
yeah, I get why it's not there in the game. I wish they would do a fast travel system after you've beaten the game.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to not let me have a fast travel system as I play, because the point is to learn that patience and to learn that discipline to go and go to all places. But after I've beaten the game, like, let me fast travel. I'm not doing anything. I'm just scanning plants. Like,
Right.
like it's already work to scan plants. At least make the scanning plants easier. And like so much of the stuff on Zepho is here now. All of a sudden, you're on a slidey bridge, and you're just gonna go here to there. And then if you didn't mean to go down the slidey bridge, sucks to be you, because now you're gonna do the 15-minute walk back up to the top of where you just fell off.
Or especially because some of the collectibles on Zepho, I'm thinking of one in particular, you have to jump off a slidey bridge at just the right time and land on a platform that you can't see ahead of time.
Oh, I definitely didn't get that one then, whatever it is.
And so like you can see it from the bottom, but you can't see it from the top. And so you have, but if you, once you slide out, like if you miss it and you slide all the way down, then you've got to go all the way back up again to try again. But I don't know. I think Dathomir is probably my favorite planet too, just because I think I had the most fun playing it.
Yeah.
Which I really loved Kashyyyk too. But I really also liked Ilum.
Ilum
I
is
like
nice.
being
It's just
on
a shorter
Ilum.
map. I think that's why it doesn't earn it as much for me. But no,
I think I just like the story part on Ilum.
Yeah.
One, I mean, I like puzzle things too, and I think the how to how to melt the ice puzzle in Ilum, I had fun with that one. But like the story part of it, like finding your new crystal, and like, I don't know, I really like Ilum a lot too.
I was excited for that. To actually get let you. Oh, that was a story thing I meant to bring up, and we got distracted. Is lightsabers, and lightsabers are so interesting in Star Wars because they often have such symbolic meaning, and they usually have different symbolic meanings in different stories. But there was some really interesting things going on with lightsabers here, because Cal during Order 66 loses his, and so he's using T'Pol's at the beginning of the game, which is busted, which is why it's only single blade. It took me a while to figure out that's what was going on. And then you eventually get the other half of like a saber you find, and then you get the other half of then you use Sears.
Right.
But what's wild is after Trilla gives you her Inquisitor sword, which was probably not really hers, because otherwise he wouldn't have been able to sense what happened to her. So it was probably like the sword of the, I don't know. I have to go back through that part again because I can't remember what part was the mirror vision and what part was him reading the Inquisitor saber.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. He takes that back to Seer, so then Seer's using the Inquisitor blade, and like during the mirror scene, there's a part where Trilla's there and Cal kneels before her. But then when he's getting knighted by Seer, he's kneeling before Seer, but it's the same sword that was in his vision, but it's Seer instead of Trilla. And like that's really cool. And then I like the bit where, like in Order 66, there's a shot where you watch T'Pol like jump in a room and you're behind a window and you're watching him wreck some clones. And then when you're on or when you're at the fortress, there's a shot where you're behind a window and Seer jumps in and she wrecks a bunch of stormtroopers, and like some parallels with that. And I don't know, there's something going on there, and at some level I feel like I can kind of grasp what it is, but I'm looking forward to playing it and thinking about it more, because I really think lightsabers are symbolizing something in this game, almost like they are a representation of, I don't know if legacy or burden or past or responsibility, but they mean something. And the fact that everybody is like using a saber that was given to them by somebody else. Like even when Cal remakes his saber and gets his own crystal, he's still making his saber out of like remnants of somebody else's blade.
Sure.
There's just, I don't know. Like I feel like saying it is one thing, but I haven't really put my finger on how I feel about it, but there's something going on.
Well, and something that made me think of too, I keep remembering there's a line of dialogue from Marin when you leave Dathomir and go to Ilum to get your crystal, where she talks about how ironic it is that a peacekeeper is defined by a weapon.
Yeah.
And I think there's that there too.
Yeah.
But I not thought about the hand-me-down nature of everyone's saber in this game.
I feel like there's some connection between the hand-me-down sabers and everybody else dealing with almost like this hand-me-down guilt. of somebody else did a thing, so now I'm bearing the burden of the thing that somebody else did.
Right. Well, let me ask you this too, just because I know this was something that you were excited about, and I know it didn't exactly play out, the way you thought. But was there a connection there because you could build a saber that's not entirely dissimilar from the one you built yourself in
Galaxy's Edge? I
Galaxy's
did
Edge?
actually start finding pieces that were named what mine is, protection and defense. So it was just that I hadn't gotten to those crates yet. But then ironically, they were choices. I've been holding this because it makes me feel better while we've been streaming. There are pieces that aren't the ones I picked. But even Vader's crystal and the Inquisitor's sabers are other people's or given to them. That's true, Ian says. So there's something going on there. But I think
that reminds me of the moment in the Vader comic where they destroy Yoda's saber and it like blows up the incinerator. Oh, I love that moment.
Oh man, but I think there is a connection there too, because it's kind of funny that they let you customize the saber. Also, hi Dale. They let you customize your saber so much because like you can pick a paint job for BD, you can pick a paint job for the Mantis, you can pick if you're wearing a poncho or not, but like the amount of customization you can put into your saber, and then when you make your own, the color choices you have
Right.
are really cool. And I think where this game doesn't really have RPG elements for who you're playing or RPG elements for Cal, they really let you have that for your lightsaber, and your lightsaber can tell a story.
Right.
And I do think there's something to that. Again, I don't know what it is because it's all still a little too fresh for me, but like I can tell there's something out there. I just have to find it. Yeah, I have to find a few more echoes.
The lightsaber customization also made me wonder, because I think that was one of my favorite things about the game, apart from the story, especially like the different like metals that you could use, because some of them are pretty wild colors, and it made me wonder if there are Jedi, in the Republic era that are running around with like neon green lightsabers,
right.
or really bright purple, like not blades but like the actual sabers.
Oh yeah, like the hilts.
Yeah, or is it all Durasteel? Because like some of those material colors are just so insanely vivid.
Yeah.
And like it was so cool to like see that, because it's not just like a cutscene thing, like it like you see it in the game.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I loved that so much. The poncho stuff I could take or leave.
Yeah.
But
neither you nor I really liked wearing ponchos, so
I mean, but some of them too. There was like a really bright hot pink one.
Yeah.
And I was like, is like whatever you think about the color pink, I'm not sure if this is practical in this moment.
Right. Like this strikes me as I'll really stand out and not I'm gonna sneak through an Imperial base on Zepho. Like I feel like at all times wearing something camouflage. Wore a poncho on Kashyyyk to blend in. Yeah, Kashyyyk is the only planet I wore. I might have worn one on Ilum too, just because it looked cold. But Kashyyyk, because it was raining, I was like, I should wear a poncho. It's raining. Otherwise, I didn't wear a poncho. But I did wear one on Kashyyyk.
He also should have, like taped grocery store bags around his shoes when he was walking in the snow, right?
It's what I do. It's what I do. You can laugh, but my socks are dry, so
Not a problem.
Wait, how much snow does it take? How much snow does it take for your town to shut down again?
I wouldn't know. We hadn't gotten it in a while. So we had tornadoes last night though, so that was fun.
Nolan had one today. He's in chat, and he just literally escaped one an hour ago.
Always so much fun.
Yep. Yeah, wish there was more customization. Yeah, like let us change this outfit. Like you can change the saber. Yeah, I wonder if there's something in the philosophy of the game with the lightsaber to that, or what.
I did also wonder what Grease thought about me constantly changing the paint job on his ship.
That would have been fun if there was like if you just changed it a lot. If there was like a line of dialogue, like if the game was aware of it, and be like, "Why?" It'd be funny. The one thing I haven't gotten to do anything is the boggling that you take as a companion. I never found the payoff for that, but I think it's because I wasn't planet hopping very much. Like with this playthrough, I'm gonna planet hop more and like actually grind for experience, so I don't completely get wrecked when I go to the fortress again. But on story, I didn't need to grind. Like I didn't grind at all, and I got all but one skill by the end of the game.
I mean, I could be wrong about the boggling, but I think it ends up just being an Easter egg that you just see running around the ship. Like
Gotcha.
I've never been able to take it off the
Off
ship
the
anywhere.
Gotcha. Nolan wears grocery bags on his shoes when it's been raining. Yeah, it's a trick I learned from my grandmother. What
There you go.
can I say? It's a grandmother. And the city shuts down after 2 or 3 inches of snow. Yeah, 2 or 3 inches of snow, and we're like, it's fine.
I feel like there's still so much we haven't talked
Yeah,
about, but
but we've been going over an hour as is. I mean, there is. I feel like a lot of what I would say at this point is more just unformed stuff from wanting to play it again. So like maybe like in 6 months we could do a Fallen Order revisited stream or something. But no, I like overall, like I said, I was really impressed. I was afraid I was gonna be really bad at the game, and I wasn't great at the game. But like I usually get really confused by puzzles and stuff in games, and I felt like the game was intuitive enough. I felt challenged by all the puzzles, but I never felt to the point of frustration where I had to stop the puzzle and take a day off because I just literally couldn't figure it out. There were a couple of few tiny little things that I got hung up on, but in a game that long, I'm usually more easily confused, and that was fine. I hope that doesn't mean it was too easy for other people, but like for somebody that's just not my Fallen Order is just not my genre of game. Like if Fallen Order was not Star Wars, it was some other like galactic marine story or something, I never would have played it. But like it was accessible to me who was only playing it to play a Star Wars game, and it was still really engaging to me. And like I think I'll be able to handle a higher difficulty now, having played it in story, where I could just get used to how the controls worked. And the platforming is effectively the same, other than you take more damage when you die because you fell off a cliff. But otherwise, the platforming is what it already was. So I don't know.
I really enjoyed it too. I want to play it again, and I'm hoping we get a sequel.
I'm really hoping we get a sequel. If we don't get a sequel and they just do like a spiritual successor, I at least hope that they give us more with these characters, because I do feel like at some level it's the classic. We need the explanation of where were they during the original trilogy.
I might pick up Republic Commando again, Nolan. That was a computer issue. It was not gelling as well as it might otherwise have.
Yeah.
But I had fun playing it.
Mm-hmm.
I sucked at it, but it was fun playing it.
I mean, that's some of the best. Dragonheart, hello, welcome. I hope they make more. I hope they do too. I still think it's ridiculous that EA has had this license for how long, and they've made 3 games. Yeah. And 2 of them have been Battlefront, which isn't a knock on Battlefront, but they made like a game, and then they made another game with updated mechanics, and then they made Fallen Order. It's like, come on. But Fallen Order did really well. It outsold the projections of what they thought it was going to do. And I've heard nothing but glowing reviews from other people. So I'm sure. Yeah, RIP Uprising.
RIP 1313. That's what I want.
Yep. Just want a Baby Yoda game. That would be fun. I genuinely want a Star Wars game that's built on like the Telltale model, or like a Life is Strange. Like, I was reading Force Collector, and I kept thinking as I was reading Force Collector, like, this feels like space Life is Strange. Like, it really made me want like a Square Enix Star Wars game. I think a Square Enix Star Wars game would be insane. But who knows? Oh man. RIP Alderaan game. Strongly want EA to not get their exclusive contract renewed. More diversity of Star Wars games. I mean, yeah, but I thought it was going to be possible that EA would lose the contract with the debacle that was the launch of Battlefront 2, but now Battlefront 2 isn't terrible from what I've been told, and Fallen Order did well. So now EA has ammunition.
Yep.
If Telltale had been around for like 2 more years, could have seen it, yeah. Well, especially because they did Disney properties. Like, they had Guardians of the Galaxy. Telltale, I would pay so much money for a Telltale Star Wars game. Like, a lot.
I never played. There's a Batman one that I haven't played.
I've heard the Batman ones are good. Now we're getting really off topic. But I have a feeling you guys are gonna see more from at least me, if not both of us, on Fallen Order as time goes on. Especially my 32-part series about how Seer never did a thing wrong in her whole life. Boba Fett game. That's kind of what 1313 was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Before it got canceled.
Really, I'll do a video expose called "You Could Have Just Dropped in the Vault from the Top."
Well, okay, so I thought about that when I was replaying. I was thinking about that, but you go through like the door, right? Like there's a part where the campfire is, and then you touch where the force juice is. But you walk through, but if like you go on the other side of that, there's nothing there. So you're going through some kind of
that's a fair point.
You're going through some kind of weird force part, unless you're teleporting somewhere else.
It's the world between worlds.
Yeah, the vault is in the world between worlds. With Ben.
I didn't think about that. That's a good point, because I just kept looking up.
Yeah, it's like, well, I thought about that too when I was there. I'm like,
open enough, you could have landed the mantis in here.
Well, it's like, and that was part of the problem with streaming it, because if I was just playing this game, I would have binge played it and beaten it in like 3 days. But like, because I was streaming it and trying to play it only on stream, it took me like a month to beat the game. So like the first time I went in the vault was December, and the last time I went into the vault was Tuesday. And so by then I'd kind of forgotten what was on the other side of that door. Because it'd been so long. But I was thinking about that when I restarted, and I was like, oh wait, no, I think this is a portal somewhere. I think there's shifty things afoot. But that's the nature of playing a game over. That's why games really need to be played more than once, I think, because it's easy to forget.
Right.
They should have DLCs to Fallen Order. I mean, there's stuff they could add. I don't think there's anything they could put at the past the end, unless they did some sort of like weird epilogue. But I could see them adding, just like, I could see DLC, like temples, like on Zepho or other places, just them having DLCs that open up new pathways that have other puzzles. So like, not story DLCs, but just give you even more collectibles if you haven't found them all yet.
I just want more ponchos.
I need so many ponchos to not wear. So many ponchos to not wear. Expansion would be cool. But yeah, I would rather than put in the effort on a full sequel. But I mean, like, DLC dungeon rooms would be fun to pass the time. I don't know. They should make a poncho that has a picture of Starkiller on it. That would be fun.
That's funny.
Just to make people angry. You did make it look easy. Oh no, I didn't make it look easy. I was playing on easy. Like, there's a distinct difference. I was playing on story mode. Like, if you look at the menu on story mode, it's like, there's like 4 stats, and it's amount of time to parry, damage you deal, damage you take in, and like stamina or something. I don't remember what the 4th one is, but like on story, it's like you get all this time to parry and like nothing bad happens. And then on everything else, it's like balanced. Like, story is literally made to not challenge you at all and just let you play the game. So I guarantee you the other guy was just playing at a higher difficulty. Have I seen the Star Wars TV movies about the Ewoks? I have years ago, but I was in high school. So it was like 13 years ago, and I remember like nothing. But I have technically seen them. We meant to do something with that this year, or last year, and we never did.
Yeah.
We'll have to find a way to do that. But yeah, I don't know. I doubt they'll ever end up on Disney Plus, which makes me sad. I don't think they'll ever put it. I don't even think it's a licensing thing. I don't think they'll put anything Legends on Disney Plus. For a sequel, do we have any planets that we wish they could explore? Oh, I would love it if we could go to Alderaan and actually get to see Alderaan.
Oh, that would be such a pretty map.
It'd be pretty, and it would be nice to see it before it blows up. Because like with Alderaan, it's such a big deal. Like it becomes such a big deal to Leia's life, obviously, that that it got blown up. But apart from seeing it in Princess of Alderaan, we don't really see it in much. So I think it'd be fun to play there.
I think Coruscant would be cool.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since one of the only games that I remember that you actually spend like a lot of time on Coruscant is Bounty Hunter.
Oh yeah.
But I would also really like if the sequel is as we expect, Vader centric, it would be cool to go to Mustafar.
Go to Mustafar, yeah.
Yeah.
Have a lava slide with like super metal boots or something.
Yeah.
I think it would be fun to go to a world. I know, Cal, if you're still here, you would love to see Mon Cala. But it would be cool to go to a map that is entirely ocean.
Right.
That would probably be really hard to navigate because you can't open the map underwater unless they change it. Go to Exegol? Yes. Obi-Wan game had Coruscant as well. Ossus? I mean, hey, I'd go a lot of places. And then I'd still like a mix of like, I think it would be fun if they added some new worlds too. Or if they didn't want to like make up whole worlds, go to planets that exist like on atlases that have no background, like Port Haven.
All right, yeah.
Port Haven is now a canon planet again, and I would love to see it. I'd love to see it get put into a video game.
If you want an urban place too, Corellia would be an interesting.
Oh yeah.
Add to.
Jump 60 years in time and go to Jakku and make Finn question why everyone wants to go back. Why is everybody going back to Jakku? Or go there ahead of time and make up the reason why everyone wants to go back to Jakku. I imagine like a sand planet would just be all sand slides. Just the entire planet is one slide, and you go around on a track, and you have to like jump onto different things, and you're never sitting still the entire planet. It would be horrible.
See, I would say something like Takodana too, just because I want Cal to meet Maz.
That would be cool. Takodana would be a cool planet for him to go to if he wanted to train in something.
Yeah, sure.
Because I could get behind that. I hope if they do a sequel, because I was trying to think of what powers Cal could have in a sequel game. Because they'd want to do something to make it new. I get that like overall he'd still have BD and BD would still have the stims, but I would love to see him get actual force heal. And right. I don't think that would be too bad because as it is, you already have your force meter, so like he would already like you would still want BD stims too, because you wouldn't want to drain your entire force meter on healing. But it would be nice to just have it in a pinch.
Right.
And then I don't know, like what else? Because it's hard to think of like other light side powers.
See, I think it would probably have to like instead of powers be more about like combo moves.
Yeah.
And maybe like other gadgets and things that you could unlock.
It would be fun if they could make the psychometry, however you would say it, more of an active thing than a passive thing. Like if he's learned how to search through memories like Quinn Voss has, to have it be a thing where like you are seeing the visions he's seeing and you have some control over them, and like maybe be able to upgrade that over time.
Yeah.
What if the sequel mirrors Trust? So it would be amazing. What you're saying? Cal becomes an addiction and BD1 can give him death sticks to return withdrawals. That's a little dark. They should make a Fallen Order movie. They could. I mean, basically is. It's just a movie you play.
Yeah.
That's what Let's Plays are for. What if Obi-Wan meets Cal in the show? They could! Cameron Monaghan... Or, no, that's not his name. Cameron something. Anyway, he looks just like his character. And he could show up.
That was one of the only other things that distracted me at the beginning of the game is because
Gotham.
He's the Joker on Gotham, and I'm like, why does the Joker have a lightsaber? This is a bad idea. Very, very bad idea. Giving the Joker actual magic powers.
Thankfully, he turned out a little bit different. Instead, it was Mirren who asked why somebody was so serious.
Yeah. I know this is like apropos of nothing anymore, but I love when you're leaving Dathomir and Mirren's just kind of like, no, you can just make it yourself. I'll just kind of pop in here
I
and there
was like, really?
sit cross-legged over here while you jump over some
Really?
rocks.
You can't just teleport me back? My favorite Mirren moment was you're on the Mantis and she's trying to describe the difference between like her magic and the Force. And then I don't really remember what Grease says, but he's like, you know, it's kind of like sometimes I have this kind of steak or I have that kind of steak. And she goes, yes, my Force powers are exactly like steak. I think I just like stopped and laughed for a couple of minutes. Yeah, no, she doesn't call her brothers off. She doesn't call the zombies off. She's just like, you got this. You're fine. Oh boy. But yeah, no. So
they were also all kind of under the sway of not Joris at that point too, so she might not have been able to.
That's true. Even though he's dead at that point, that doesn't mean she's regained all of the power. Although I think she summons the zombie sisters, doesn't she? But she's working for not Joris, for Mark Wahlberg. So again, I have to play it again because I just played it one time. But no, overall, I loved it. Like, I couldn't recommend that game enough, and I definitely think it has replayability. And like, not even just to find the collectibles. Like, I feel like it's a story I'm gonna want to experience and re-experience.
Highly recommend.
All right. Well, I think at this point we're either gonna get into like another long tangent or be done. So we'll probably call it. Schedule right now is a little up in the air. So Sunday, the hope is to have another Most Wanted video for our book club up, which I highly recommend you guys join in
on. It's a good time to get in.
Good time to get in. We're gonna try to do StreamCast normally on Tuesdays. I'll probably keep doing a game stream of some kind on Thursdays, and then there's just stuff I want to do. Like, I've dragged my feet on doing Galaxy's Edge stuff for a month that I haven't done, and I want to do some more Rise of Skywalker stuff, and it'll just be people. I just have to do it, so we'll see. But right now, I'd say the 3 locked in things are book club, and then 2 different streams. And then if for some reason the StreamCast is ever not on Tuesday, assume it'll be Thursday unless we've said something different. And then once Clone Wars starts, I'll do weekly Clone Wars reviews. What if psychometry could let you play the other Jedi in the sequel? Yes. Yes. I'd also like levels where you could play as Seer or Mirren for like certain planets. You could only this person can go out. And I think that would be another way to change up the mechanics. I think that would be fun. Okay. Well, thank you all so much for being here. And if you're not already, please join our Discord. Discord is the easiest way for me to get in touch with you guys if you really want to know what our schedule is going to be. And yeah, otherwise I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Yeah, thanks, guys.